Calling all pet parents, welcome to Tip the Dish, another show by the Pet Shop Girls, where we're dishing tips on natural pet care.
Hey everybody, I'm Sherry.
And I'm Carly.
Welcome to Tip the Dish podcast.
Today, we have the honor of welcoming a pillar in the industry, a true trailblazer in pet food, Susan Thixton. Known as the Caped Crusader for safe pet food, Susan is a consumer advocate, author, and the founder of Truth About Pet Food. For over a decade, she has been a fearless voice for pet parents, uncovering hidden dangers in the pet food industry and pushing for higher safety standards.
Susan is also a founding member of Association for Truth in Pet Food, a consumer-based organization that works directly with regulatory authorities like the FDA and AAFCO to fight for transparency and better regulations. Her mission? To educate and empower pet parents so they can make informed choices about the food they feed their beloved companions.
Her expertise has been featured in major media outlets, and her dedication has helped countless pet parents navigate the confusing and often misleading world of pet food labels, ingredients, and safety standards.
Get ready for an eye-opening conversation as we dive into the truth about pet food with the incredible Susan Thixton. Welcome to the podcast, Susan. We're so excited to have you.
Oh, I'm glad to be here.
Yes. All the way from Florida.
All the way from sunny Florida.
All the way from sunny Florida. Until Canada sends down some more snow. But we only did that once in a little while.
Okay. For some of our dishers who aren't familiar with you and the truthaboutpetfood.com, could you share a little bit about it and what prompted you to start this project?
And just for clarity, I have to do this and you'll understand why. It's not the truthaboutpetfood.com.
I'm so sorry, yes.
Well, because the Pet Food Institute, the trade organization that represents Mars, Purina, Hills, bought the domain, thetruthaboutpetfood.com, and directed it to their website. No kidding. Yeah.
They see you as that much of a threat?
Yep.
Yeah.
Wow. That's exactly.
Okay. So I'm a consumer advocate. I argue on a consistent basis with regulatory authorities regarding basically lack of enforcement of law, but some crazy, not fair laws. I totally 100% represent consumers. I don't represent any manufacturers. I have had manufacturers ask me, what do you think about this? And what do you think about this? And can you help us with this? And I don't do that. I only represent pet food consumers.
Mm-hmm. Which we appreciate because it is a tricky world out there. I know I love that we have titled this episode The Dirty Little Secrets, because we've had a postcard in my store for the past 2 years that literally says the dirty little secrets the pet food industry doesn't want you to know about. And it's a bunch of QR codes that takes our customers to educational videos that we've put out there. And we tell them every time, they don't want you to know about these secrets, but we want you to know these dirty little secrets. So one of the dirty little secrets that we often talk about is pet food labels and how misleading they can be. What would you say in all of your experience would be some of the biggest red flags that pet parents should look out for when reading their ingredient lists?
Every single ingredient on a pet food label has their own unique definition that is very different from the same ingredient in human food. Chicken.
Yes. Yep.
So front of the bag, made with real chicken. That's pretty much false. The consumer sees that and thinks chicken. In the US, it's USDA inspected and passed chicken. In Canada, it's CFIA inspected and passed chicken. But pet food chicken holds no requirement to be inspected and suitable for use in human food. It can be condemned chicken. It can be chicken that died other than by slaughter. An example of that, and this is a very graphic and horrible example, in 2017, Hurricane Florence hit North and South Carolina and caused massive flooding. Well, there's a lot of confinement farms in that area of the U.S., and more than 3 million poultry, turkeys and chickens, drowned in their confinement barns. More than 3,000 hogs drowned in their confinement barns. When the flood waters subsided, those bloated, decomposing carcasses, bulldozers came in, bulldozed all of that out, along with whatever else was in there.
Yeah.
That material was sent to rendering facilities. It was ground, cooked, sold to pet food with no disclosure to the consumer.
That can't be safe.
So, yeah, agreed. But they feel like the FDA, their statement on this is, we do not believe that the use of diseased animals or animals that have died other than by slaughter in animal food poses any safety concern, and we will continue to exercise enforcement discretion. So I filed a Freedom of Information Act request with FDA and said, okay, you're a science-based agency. At least you claim you are a science-based agency. Show me the science you are basing that belief on. They could not provide me with any science.
Of course not.
Yeah. So that's the most deceiving thing to me about labels. And, all those ingredients are different than what we do. We understand them to be. So when the FDA does something that you disagree with, or you'd like them to do something, in a different way, there is an official request, and it's called a citizen petition. And it's not a petition like where you gather signatures. It's literally a formal document. It has to be set up in the right format, that you submit on a government website. And the FDA is required to respond to you within 120 days. 2.5 years ago, I filed a citizen petition with the FDA on this very topic, because there are laws that state no two ingredients can be of the same name if they're different. In one of the examples was nutritional value. Well, there's a significant difference in nutritional value from condemned chicken, chicken that has died other than by slaughter, to USDA CFIA inspected and passed chicken. So my whole citizen petition cited law that requires disclosure. So my suggestion, my request to FDA was to call it feed grade chicken instead of chicken. We have to give it a different name. So let's tell the consumer, at least alert the consumer that this is not the chicken they're familiar with. Again, they were supposed to respond within 120 days. We're closing in on 2 years, on 3 years. In July, it will be 3 years, and the FDA still has not responded. All they do is within that 120 days, is respond by saying, well, we're still deciding on this.
Yeah.
And we'll get back to you.
So you've mentioned the FDA a few times. What about AFCO? You just got back from an AFCO meeting, actually. And I think many pet parents believe that if a food is AFCO approved, it must be safe. So what's the difference, and what oversight does AFCO actually have?
AFCO stands for the Association of American Feed Control Officials. Feed. Remember that? That's important. AFCO is not a regulatory body. They don't regulate pet food. They don't certify pet food. They don't approve pet food. They are a private organization that writes laws. Actually, they're termed as model bills that are then adopted as law in states. So in the U.S., pet food is regulated on a federal level by the FDA and on a state level by the State Department of Agriculture. In most states, it's the State Department of Agriculture that's charged with regulating animal food. So AFCO's goal, they started more than 100 years ago, was to try to get states all on the same page. They all regulate these products because of interstate commerce. The pet food might be made in North Carolina, but then it's shipped to California. So they need the states to be uniform with their regulation. We still don't have that. 100 plus years later, we still don't have that. But FDA, prior to the end of last year, FDA participated in AFCO. So the membership of AFCO is State Department of Agriculture representatives and FDA. They are who get to vote. They run it on a faux government type setup. All in favor say aye, all opposed same sign. It makes you think that this is it's really official process.
Yeah.
But remember, this is a private organization. Okay. They are not government. Their membership is government. But the organization itself producing these model bills that will become law is a private organization. They charge for admission, significant cost to attend. Now for like ingredient approvals. So if somebody a company wants to have every ingredient in pet food and livestock feed has to be approved. With FDA, it can be certified as GRAS, which stands for generally recognized as safe. The company has to submit safety data to FDA, and then the FDA will give them that GRAS status. AFCO does not do the GRAS aspect of it, but they define the ingredient. It has to have a legal definition, and they say, we're gonna define, the approval process up till just recently. It's all just recently changed. Somebody would submit a request, so the approval process was basically writing the definition for it.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I have literally just pulled up AFCO's description of natural. So this I saw this years ago. I put a big post out about this because it blew my mind. So AFCO's definition of natural, hold on to your socks here, dishers, because it is a feed or feed ingredient derived solely from plant, animal, or mine sources, either in its unprocessed state or having been subject to physical processing, heat processing, rendering, purification, extraction, hydrolysis, enzymolysis, whatever that word is, or fermentation, but not having been produced or by or subject to a chemically synthetic process and not containing any additives or processing aids that are chemically synthetic, except in amounts as might occur in good manufacturing processes or practices. So it's we get the internet peeps, I'm going to say, coming after us all the time because you're recommending food that, that isn't WASAVA or AFCO approved. And, it has to be AFCO approved. Well, AFCO's definitions themselves, first of all, just like you said with the FDA, don't define food as we know it. And secondly, their standards are to sustain life, not see an animal thrive. It is merely to sustain life. They are minimum requirements. That's why we get into the situations like Hills where they have excess vitamin D because they were compliant. They had the minimum amount of vitamin D, but nowhere in there does it say anything about maximums. Or unless maybe that's changing now.
Oh, no, I think they do have a maximum. There is a maximum, I think, for vitamin D. What Hills did, so, and I can show you, this is the AFCO book of definitions and regulations. Look how thick that book is.
Wow. It's like 5 inches thick, everybody.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I heard at one time with the AFCO manual there that at this time now, this was about 6 years ago, that it was 159 pages and only 15 were actually about ingredients. The rest was all about how.
Oh, no.
That's changed?
No, it's pay. I mean, it's insanity. There are, oh gosh. Now we've started down a rabbit hole. There are defined ingredients for poultry litter waste. Okay, you know what I'm talking about here when I say poultry litter? What comes out the back end of chickens?
Yeah.
That is a defined ingredient in this book to be fed to cattle.
So why do you think all this is AFCO being bought? Are they influenced by other agencies? What's going on? Why is this legal?
They're influenced through industry. When I first started going to AFCO, this was just horrifying to me. I was under the assumption that, this was more regulatory, more government, it would be very professional. Industry would be there. And of course, complain about something, but the regulators were going to do it per law and what they should be doing. Boy, was I wrong. First several years, the trade association AFIA, American Feed Industry Association, is a huge, very powerful trade association that it represents pet food, livestock, ingredient suppliers, huge, powerful. One of their representatives would finish sentences for AFCO, and they would start to talk about something and go, "Oh, I don't remember that." And they'd ask the girl that was their big rep, and she would tell them what the rule is. My brain went, because how can they do this? How can they be so influenced? One of the AFCO people, a guy that I feel like has been very fair, I'm not going to mention his name. He's retired now, but at an AFCO meeting, the same individual from AFIA, after the meeting was over, in the front of the room where all the regulatory people and some industries sit, it's tables with tablecloths over them. And he pulled out a case of Corona beer from underneath the table and he went, "Okay, time to party." And he was talking to the AFIA person. And I privately went to him later and I said, "You can't do that. That you're regulatory. You cannot go party with and hang out and be best buds
Yeah.
with industry. That's a
Yeah.
conflict of interest. You can't do that.
Yeah.
They do it anyway. But FDA, I have to say, does a little bit better job at staying arm's length away from everybody. I even tried one time, and this guy from FDA is retired too. I tried to buy him a drink, and he would not let me. So, I gave him a lot of credit for that. I wanted to get him talking, but he would not bite. Yeah, I had a motive. But AFCO, there is a purpose for AFCO, though. And there's a bill in Congress right now that could basically change everything, called the PUR Act, PURR. And the PUR Act would take all state regulation of pet food away, gone. And I think that's a huge, huge mistake. I don't agree with the states. I think they need to do a much better job. But if they're gone, then all we have is FDA, and we already know how FDA stands.
And you're like Canada. You become the wild, wild west with no regulations.
And it will be. Yeah. Well, at least we still would have regulations. Canada has no regulations.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Do you, while we're talking about regulations, do you believe that big pet food companies like Mars have influence over any of these regulations?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I've been in, they kicked me out when you're a stakeholder organization. That's their terminology. Like the Pet Food Institute is a stakeholder organization. Their membership are Big Pet Food, Big Pet Feed. So Association for Truth in Pet Food is a consumer stakeholder organization. Honestly, we have consumers are the largest stakeholder of pet food, and we should have a voice that is absolutely heard and listened to for what we want and need. We don't get that. But so in AFCO, stakeholder organizations are allowed to become AFCO advisors, where you get a little bit more inside the door. You get to sit at the table in the front of the room for different sessions. You're in working groups where they, like for pet food label modernization, it's still going to be 5 years or so, but I started off on those working groups where I can voice a little bit more of an opinion of, no, consumers really need this. You can't delete this. Not that they're going to listen, but at least it's an opportunity to have a little bit more of a voice. Yeah. And then they kicked me out. But with all of that politics, I've remained there. I still go to the meetings, even though they hate the air I breathe.
So what can our listeners do? Like, if they want to help shape these regulations,
can our dishers do?
What can our dishers do? Like, what can we do? It's, we want to change how things are being done. There's got to be something, right?
Well, there's like on that citizen petition, when I submitted that, 2.5 years ago, there was opportunity for comment where a consumer could go in, and a lot of consumers did that. So like with this PUR Act, I highly encourage everybody, and this is if that thing passes, it's bad news. It is bad news. So I highly encourage all of your dishers to contact their representatives in Congress and tell them absolutely not. Please do not pass this. We need state regulation of pet food it's another set of eyes on a product that history shows is very problematic at times. So we need the state. So that's something right there. But whenever I come across something, I do put out that information on my website, that call to action.
You put that out there because I remember sharing that. Even though I'm in Canada, we have a lot of American followers on my page, so I know that I can still reach some of the US. I want to talk about, because this is kind of a hot topic, or was, and now the truth is coming out, and you also shared the truth about the kitty who passed of raw food. So I kind of want to talk about recalls specifically, and we don't have to talk about necessarily raw, but with recalls, and there's so many recalls every year with dry food. What does that tell us about the industry's safety standards?
There's when you it's when they get caught. That's what it boils down to. So Hills, as an example, when they had that excess vitamin D recall, it was found out, and FDA reported this in a warning letter to Hills afterwards, and it's on the FDA website, so people can find that. That Hills had written safety requirements. Okay. Current good manufacturing practices, GM, whatever the acronym is for that is what you'll see. They are required by law to have a written safety procedure. And when they know there's a potential for a problem to happen, you've got to be real specific of how you're going to prevent that potential problem from happening. Well, when FDA went in after a lot of pets died, FDA goes in and their investigation is called a trace forward and trace backwards. Okay. Trace forward is to see where all of the contaminated pet food went, which distributors got it, which pet stores got it, so on. Trace backwards is to determine the absolute cause. Like, was it an ingredient supplier? In this case, it was. They had not calculated the percentage of vitamin D correctly in these foods. But Hill's written safety procedures were to test all incoming vitamin mineral premixes to make sure they are right. And Hills did not follow their own safety standards. So it's just when they get caught. I think it's so much worse. A year ago, last January, February, and March, we had so many pets die that myself, Dr. Judy Morgan, Kelly Bone of the Facebook group Saving Pets. We really tried. Myself and Judy Morgan and Karen Becker all paid for testing, and we could not track it down. We felt like we knew what the problem was, but we could not confirm that in laboratory analysis. But our budgets are limited, and it's not our job to do this. This is regulatory's job. I pushed and pushed regulatory in all of that. We know that just in January alone, the FDA got like 1,100 sick pets that were bleeding out, horrible situations, and more than 100 died. FDA still hasn't released, even though I filed for that almost a year ago, how many reports they got in February and March. So the safety of these products, I think they would be a lot safer if we could get these Freedom of Information Act requests from FDA in a timely manner. I've got FOIA requests in 4 years ago. They just don't give you the information.
I know,
or they don't give me the information.
Yeah, well, but you're the one who knows all of the things. They should be giving you the information. I
Right. And
know
if
I
our
reached.
dishers are, I was going to say, if our dishers are unaware, truthaboutpetfood.com, you put out there information about recalls often before the company even
Mhm.
releases the recall information. So if you want to know about recalls uh,
Get on Susan's
quickly,
mailing list.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah,
But
I
and
know.
how there's so many recalls each year. It's disturbing.
Well, that's I think the
Yeah, and
most
I keep
disturbing.
track of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I keep track of them. What's in I found interesting, and I just happened across this years ago, is FDA has web pages for enforcement reports. And if you do a Google search, FDA enforcement reports, you can access this data. So for every recall, whether it's human food, a pharmaceutical product, or pet food, for every recall, they publish an enforcement report. And in pet food, it tells us how many pounds of pet food have been recalled.
Yep.
So a company might say, we're recalling, a minimal, they'll use the word minimal amount of pet food. Well, when you look at the enforcement report, it's 5 million pounds. That's not minimal,
Could you
so
could
I've tracked all of this
could you
since 2012.
between kibble and raw food, what gets recalled the most? And are you able to share with us what brand has been recalled the most?
Yeah, it's on her website.
Um, it's it for so pathogenic bacteria, Salmonella, E. coli, Listeria. That's the number one cause of recalls.
Mhm.
Okay, historically. And raw pet food gets the bad rap from those that have not bothered to do this homework of enforcement reports as the most dangerous product. Well, going back of data, FDA data from 2012 to current day, 97% of the pounds of pet food recalled for pathogenic bacteria has been kibble.
Mm-hmm.
Raw is around 3%, a little less than.
Yeah.
So it has a significant more risk. There used to be a compliance policy on the FDA website, and it's on my website somewhere. I can't tell you where. It's on Wayback Machine. You can find that exact record on Wayback Machine now. But this compliance policy was about the potential of salmonella in dry pet food was FDA's terminology. And it stated in this FDA document that industry told them it is impossible, quote, impossible to produce a dry pet food without salmonella.
But yet we do
So,
it every day.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know, I
So,
know that's a big myth around raw pet food, that it's full of bacteria. And we have pet parents come in every day saying, I'm thinking about raw, but I'm just scared of bacteria. And I tell them every time, there is more chance of bacteria in your dry food than in your raw food ever. Like that,
yeah,
it's a myth that the industry uses to perpetuate fear, to keep pets eating dry food and preventing them from moving to their biologically appropriate diets. I'm wondering, when we're talking about raw food too, and we know that raw food comes under scrutiny far more than, I mean, the media grabs onto anything that discourages raw feeding, or supports the big pet food manufacturers. And I guess the reason I say that, I look at DCM, and that nonsense has been going around for almost 7 years now, and that was a good story, and the media latched onto it. But when the FDA came back and recanted everything that they helped perpetuate, nothing. Now, poor Northwest Naturals is under the microscope because of information. And I read your information that you shared, Susan, about how Oregon State did not do this properly. They perpetuated nonsense around the how unsafe raw food is, and that this animal died from it. And now that the true information is coming out, crickets. They're not helping
Well,
to share that
nobody wants to
information.
report. Nobody wants
Good
to report
news.
that they're wrong.
Or
Yeah.
good news.
Yeah, but they should. Well, and
Yeah.
there's more to the story. There's actually a little bit more to the story. So the county in Oregon where the cat that died from avian flu that Oregon Department of Agriculture linked to testing of an open bag
Yep.
of pet food, which you can't do. You cannot do that. In the very same county that cat lived, another cat in the very same county has died. And of course, Oregon Department of Agriculture did not issue a press release about that. That cat probably ate kibble.
Yep.
That cat, they immediately acknowledged, went outside. Well, that's where the exposure came from. It's absolutely where the exposure came from. So, and what Oregon did to this pet food company, I know pet owners that don't understand this regulatory bias say, oh, it was good that they recalled. They just to be on the safe side, that was good. Well, I disagree. I really wish Northwest Naturals would not have recalled. But Oregon came into them on Christmas Eve and threatened them, saying, if you don't recall, we're going to issue a public statement and do a mandatory recall. It's going to cause you massive headache. They did this on Christmas Eve. These raw pet food companies need to get some backbone. They need to very detailed know the laws, the regulations. Had they known that a regulatory authority cannot force them to recall based on testing of an opened potentially contaminated product, they might not have recalled. They've got to start going to AFCO meetings, be a member. There is a trade association for small human grade manufacturers, some cooked food, some raws. They need, and I know the director of this trade association very well. They need to be a member of that and work together. If Mars and Purina can work together through the Pet Food Institute, come on. You guys, I can't help them. I'm representing consumers. I can get the information out there because it affects consumers, but they've got to know their own regulations, what they are required to do. For pet stores, if FDA or a state authority ever comes into your store, turn your camera on and film everything they do. Everything.
Okay.
And they're not going to like that. They're going to go, no, you can't film us. Bet me I can't. This is my store. I can film you. So store owners need to be prepared. Document, make them a store owner. I think they were in Pennsylvania years back, 5-6 years back. FDA came into their store, took a whole bunch of pet food, shoved a document, and they act all official and you're intimidated. It's a little scary when they come into your store. You're thinking, what have I done wrong? What are they going to do to me? They shoved this document in front of her and said, sign it. And the document said that she was giving over $1,000 worth of pet food to FDA. Don't sign anything, read every single line. And they're going to try to bully you. But
Why would they
you
be
know,
going into a store? Like, why would the
to get
FDA
samples for testing? And it was all raw pet food. It was to go get samples for testing.
get it from the manufacturer?
Yeah.
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 Okay, so I guess when we're talking about pet parents too, and now we're talking about our raw food, and we are of the belief that a biologically appropriate diet is the best thing for our furry guys. Many of our traditional vets, who, of course, their training is heavily influenced by the big dry pet food manufacturers, but they're discouraging raw food. And so pet parents are going, well, how come you three are talking, or not just us, but there's a group of us out here that talk about biologically appropriate diets. And then we've got all of our holistic vets that would, of course, strongly encourage biologically appropriate diets, but our pet parents are being pulled in multiple different directions. And what I'm wondering from your point of view, Susan, is what information can we arm pet parents with to have those discussions with their traditional vet who may be saying, no, 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 raw is bad, all the bacteria, your dog will get aggressive, your kids will die, like all of the nonsense that they say will happen with the raw food diet. What is some information that we can arm our pet parents with to have those discussions with their vets?
I like the best, and I have PDF documents. If your listeners go to any post, it's not on the homepage. We are going to redesign the website sometime and have them on the homepage, but along any post in the sidebar on the right-hand side of any post, the very top of this side section says learn more. And there's several PDF documents. Those are there for pet owners, store owners, whoever. And it just gives you facts about pet food, linked to where I got this information. It's not just me spouting off. It is linked to the evidence of where this is coming from.
Yep.
So if I went to a veterinarian and they went, you have got to feed Hills. You've got to, long-standing company. They have all these veterinary nutritionists. They're WASAVA recommended. You got to feed this. I would go, okay, well, is Science Diet a human grade pet food or is it a feed? And the vet's going to go, what? They don't even understand
Right.
that aspect of it. So if you, as a pet owner, have a really good understanding, and in those documents, I give pet owners the legal definition of human grade and feed grade.
Perfect.
Okay. And which, by the way, the legal definition of feed grade says that it's similar to natural. Mm-hmm. That says it's got to abide by law unless it doesn't.
Right.
I mean, it gives them permission to violate law right there in the legal definition of feed grade.
Yeah.
So if you're armed with facts, legal definitions, you can go in there and go, Hills is a feed grade pet food. How do I know that the ingredients are not sourced from condemned animals or animals that have died other than by slaughter? Mm-hmm. There is no way to do that with rendered ingredients, chicken meal, chicken byproduct meal, beef meal, pork meal, any rendered ingredient. You have no guarantee.
I think some vets and some people don't care that it comes from condemned animals.
Well, and that's okay. If that's what they choose, that's fine. But if somebody's giving you advice going, well, I want you to feed this food, you now have grounds to stand very strongly on going, you might think that's suitable for your pet, but I don't.
Yep.
Right.
And this is why.
So, and
you know.
you've gone a step further, and you've compiled an annual recommended pet food list, right? For consumers to help them pick better foods out there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't take money from pet food. I won't even let them buy me lunch. And I get teased by that with some of them. But so I'm consumer supported, and I had to have some way to make a living, to go to AFCO meetings, go meet with FDA, to run a website, to do all the things that I do.
Yep.
You still have to make a living doing
Yep.
this.
Mm-hmm.
So the number one question I was asked was just tell me what to feed. Just tell me. This is all overwhelming. You know, when you learn that condemned animals could be in your pet's food, you're freaking out, and just tell me what to feed. Well, as an advocate, I can't show any biases. You know, I can't. Plus, I don't own your dog or your cat. That's yours, and your life is different than my life. We all have different things. So all I could do was to publish a list of pet foods that I would trust to give my own pets. And that literally, the list is how I survive. After a few years of doing it, you know, it's a long list of questions that I ask each manufacturer. And then after a few years, I began validation of that. So if the company says, oh, yeah, we use all human grade ingredients, the meats are sourced from certified humanely raised animals, we're using organic fruits and vegetables, then, and you know, I started and that continues to now, then I go, okay, prove it to me. They have to provide me with pictures, you know, invoices, with letters from their suppliers. It's a lot of documents for each company, and I read every single one of them. So, and they have to do it each year. Just because they verified for the 24 list, we start over from square one for 25.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a lot of work. The document takes me about 3 months to go through all of this. But they truly are pet foods that I would and do give my own pets.
Yeah.
And I want to say this is really important because I just want to put this into context for our dishers. A few years ago, there was a brand that said they had human grade meat in their pet food. But it turned out that it was not. In fact, it was from 4D meat and pentobarbital, which is what they use to put a lame
Euthanized
cow
pets,
down.
yep.
Yeah, the euthanized cows. That was getting into the meat, getting into the food, and then pets died. And all the while, for years, they had said that they were using human grade meat.
Mm-hmm.
So what Susan is doing is really important work. And I want to encourage our dishers to go to her website and to purchase her recommended pet food
Purchase
list.
the list. That is, I mean, Susan, you put so much work into this. You're so diligent, and you have scruples. So you're not letting them even buy you lunch. So it is, I mean, this is the kind of things we get asked this all the time in the stores. What's the best? What's the best? Or on our social medias, just tell me what to feed. Exactly like you were saying. Just tell me what to feed. Susan has done the legwork for you, dishers. So if you are still going, oh crap, I don't know what to feed and I'm not sure what's in my food, you can go and you can purchase Susan's list. It's by donation, so there's not even a set price, right? It's by donation, Susan, isn't it?
Well, it's a minimum of $12.
Yeah,
you know, and then it goes up from there. If a pet owner wants to support, you know, provide more support, the option is there. But if you don't want, you don't have to. So
and you do want, I will tell you this right now, you do want, for $12, that's a cup of coffee. And if you're feeling very generous, because now Susan is going to help you find the best food for your furry guy to extend their lives and keep them with you longer, be generous, but get that list, because there's foods from Canada and the US on there. I purchase Susan's list every year because I love seeing that the brands we carry have made Susan's list. That's kind of like the gold standard of if we don't want to do the homework ourselves to figure out what's good for our furry guys, Susan has done that work for you. So I would say, okay, we are going to include your website in our show notes, Susan, so that everybody can find you. Everybody can go and download the list, purchase the list. But I know that you're very, very busy, so I'm going to be the timekeeper now, Sherry.
Oh my gosh.
I know. It doesn't happen very often. I mean, Susan, if you didn't have things to do, we'd stay here all day. But I'm wondering if you could give pet parents and our dishers that one piece of advice about feeding their pets and feeding the best that they can, what would it be?
Is if you can't afford to feed 100% a human grade pet food, meat sourced from humanely raised organic ingredients, and it's significantly more expensive. It's not an all or nothing type of situation.
Yes.
So if you, and it's very expensive, of course, looking for your own food. The example would be chicken meal. Okay. In pet food, chicken meal can be purchased. This is a wholesale price for as little as 13 cents a pound.
Yikes.
Okay,
What?
that's a meat ingredient.
Yeah.
13 cents a pound.
So you're not getting a pound of chicken
Organic,
for 13 cents.
humanely raised, USDA inspected and passed chicken, wholesale, you're looking at $8, $9, $10 a pound.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so yeah, these foods are going to cost more.
Yep.
So if you're going, I can't afford it. What am I supposed to do? Then do a tablespoon.
Yep.
Even
As
if
much
it's
as you
just a
can.
tablespoon
Mm-hmm.
on your food. Plus, then if you buy a little from this company that's doing everything right, you are supporting this business that is doing everything right.
Mm-hmm.
And
Vote
that
with your
helps.
dollars.
It can actually help lower the cost in the future. You can make your own pet food if you follow good recipes.
Yes.
Dr. Karen Becker and Rodney Habib's Forever Dog Life has wonderful recipes in there. It's scary for your listeners that's never made your own pet food. When I first started doing this, a veterinarian friend of mine was helping me, and I made the food and I put it in their bowls and put it down, and they ate it. And I'm standing there watching it. I'm expecting them to drop over dead at any minute because I did something wrong, But but there's a lot of truth to this. My cooking has not killed anybody.
Yes.
Okay. So it's okay. Take that chance. And there again, if you can only feed a little bit, take a third of the lesser expensive feed grade product away and add a third of home prepared.
Yep.
You can make home prepared. It might not be from grass fed beef or pasture raised poultry, but that is still better. The meat you're purchasing in the grocery store, even if it's on sale, turkeys at Thanksgiving, you can buy turkeys, cook those turkeys and make a bunch of pet food from that. You can still, it's hugely better as long as you're following a good recipe. Don't throw rice and peas and turkey
Ground
together
beef.
and call it a day. You've
Yeah.
got to follow a good recipe. But so that would be my advice, is take these little steps to start improving your pet's health, because you'll find as time goes on, oh, well, yeah, I can do that. This is good. And you'll notice a difference in your pet's health. And then you'll do a little more. And actually, pet owners, as you start to learn about how to improve your pet's health, you actually improve your health too.
Yes.
Because then you're paying attention to this stuff for your own
For
food.
yourself. Yeah.
You take care of the pet first.
Yeah.
But then you circle back and take care of yourself.
Yeah. But I love that because we say that all the time when pet parents are coming in and they've never fed raw before, but they've heard all this stuff and should I? Is that the way to go? But I don't know if it fits my lifestyle. We tell them
do what you're comfortable with.
Exactly.
You know, if it's cooked, I feed my own pets both raw and cooked.
Yeah.
You know, both commercial and home prepared.
And
so
that's what we tell our customers all the time, that raw or a biologically appropriate diet does not have to be all or nothing. Any raw is better than no raw. So every time we can replace those ultra processed diets with less processed fresh whole foods, and
That's
many
right.
pet stores, I know that we sell both books, The Forever Dog and The Forever Dog Life, by Dr. Becker and Rodney Habib. And we encourage people that if you're going to cook, that's the best thing you can do. You control everything that goes in there, but make sure you're following a recipe from an integrative veterinarian that is complete and balanced. Otherwise, we get ourselves into a whole world of other problems. So I love the advice. I love that you've taken the time to sit down with us, Susan. Sherry, are you chomping at the bit for one more question?
No, I still can't believe we got to sit down with you for this long. Thank you for your time. You are a rock star in the industry. You are a pillar. You are trailblazing. I mean, I'm starstruck right now. So thank you for taking the time.
And
really,
you are doing.
Thank you all for having
important work. Yeah, your work is so important, Susan. So, dishers.
Oh, and we'll see you. We'll see you at the next AFCO meeting.
Oh, there you go.
Right, Carly?
I'm gonna hold you to that.
Well, you said it was in Omaha, right? I don't know.
It's in Omaha. Yeah.
Maybe they could have it in Banff, Alberta.
Oh, that would be nice.
There you go. It's a beautiful place. But no, like I said, your work is so important, Susan. So dishers, be sure to visit Susan's website, truthaboutpetfood.com. Buy that list. Even if you are feeding raw food today, but you have to travel, you want to know the best foods out there that a person as educated and informed about pet food regulations and what goes into our pet's food, like Susan is, you want her information and her recommendations. So until next time, dishers, bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, that's a wrap, dishers.
Don't forget to follow, like, and subscribe.
Go ahead, hit all the buttons.
You know you want to.
Keep coming back for the best bites of advice for you and your pets. Tip the dish.